He's back! Hello, Cave Fam! Welcome back. I know it's been quite some time since I posted on YouTube, and I'd like to make this more of a regular thing. Longer videos, bigger tutorials. With this video, I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of go back. This will be for sort of beginners or people who are possibly interested in getting into this craft. I'm going to give you some of the tools and supplies and things that you'll need or probably want to get going. First, I'll just talk through some of the tools and supplies that I use, and then I will demonstrate how I use them. First and foremost, and the thing that I probably use more than anything else, maybe besides paintbrushes, is the Proxxon hot wire cutter. Now, other companies make hot wire cutters. I'm not familiar personally with any of them. They have varying degrees of reviews, but the Proxxon is sort of the industry standard. Yes, it's the priciest of all the machines out there. It retails for $120 on Amazon and at the Proxxon website. Yes, that's a little pricey. I know it was for me, but I use it constantly. I have well earned that money back, and I love this machine. This is a very handy tool to have. I use this for cutting most of the foam, unless I'm using a knife for something. Now, this machine comes with a fence. It's just a metal bar, basically. It wobbles a lot. It's not very secure. So I bought this aftermarket fence at Dungeons by Hand. This fence fits perfectly onto the Proxxon. I have linked his website in the description below. Next up, no-brainer, super basic, good hot glue gun. This is actually a really cheap hot glue gun. I think this was $12 originally. It's a Surebonder, but it's like the lowest line of Surebonder. It does not get super hot. I know I've heard people talk about hot glue guns melting their foam. I've never had that problem. I don't think this is a low heat hot glue gun, but it's not a high heat either. It isn't something that needs to be very fancy or expensive. You want to get yourself a good quality razor knife. I use the Olfa. A good knife is not something you want to skimp on. For that, I have this small and this large self-healing cutting mats that I do all of my knife cutting on. I don't want to cut into my tabletop. While these are dirty right now, they're actually easy to clean. These are just some silicone baking mats. They're great for keeping your space clean. Nothing sticks to them. They clean very easily. You can put hot glue on them. I have a project where I make mushrooms and I put the glue right on the mat and it peels right off very easily. I paint on them. Just silicone mats, not a must-have, but really helpful for keeping your area clean. You can also use parchment paper for the same purpose. Works great. I used parchment paper for a long time until I was suggested the silicone mats, and I'll never go back. So this is probably a no-brainer, but paintbrushes. And the reason why I'm even showing paintbrushes is because you may think you need to have a fancy set of brushes. You do not. I almost exclusively use this set. I get it at Michael's, a 15-piece. It's $10. I've been using a couple of these brushes for well over a year, and they're great. These are super cheap. They work great. I'm always looking for the least expensive product that still does the job that I need it to do, and these brushes are great. I like the white bristled synthetic brushes. They never shed. They do a great job. They hold up really well. And also on the cheap paint, I like Craftsmart brand. It's the Michaels brand paint. It's really inexpensive. It does the job. You do not need expensive paints for what I'm doing here. A black, of course. I like the Craftsmart golden brown, Craftsmart gray, and the Craftsmart suede. And those are the four paints that I use the most, almost exclusively. I do use some metallics, also the Craftsmart brand. I get into some oranges, burnt oranges and browns and things. But these are the four paints that I use for most of my stone and wood painting. You want some good PVA glue, you can use Elmer's glue, but I like the Eileen's Tacky glue. It's just a higher quality PVA or white glue, and matte finish Mod Podge, and I use this quite a bit too. I make my base coat for everything out of this. An important one for me is the steel wire brush. I use this for laying in my wood texture. Now other crafters kind of draw in their wood texture with a pencil or a pen or a knife. It looks great, and I'll never say that the way I do things is the only way to do things. It's just the way that I do them. I like the effect of using the steel wire brush for creating wood grain texture. Also, a really good metal carpenter square. I think this was $7 on Amazon, $8 maybe. Not a necessary thing to have, but something that I use all the time is this crafting heat tool, heat gun. This is not the kind of heat gun that you would use to like remove tile or linoleum or something like that. This is for crafting. It's mostly for heating up embossing powder and card making, but I use it to dry paint quickly all the time. I use it to open up texture in foam, to heat it up and do that. And of course, the foam that I make all of my models out of. This is XPS insulation foam board. It's XPS foam. I get 4x8 sheets of it. I usually get it at Lowe's. Menards has it. Home Depot has it. All of the home improvement stores carry some version of the XPS insulation foam board. I get it in 1/2 inch, 1 inch, or 2 inch pieces. I've heard tell there's 3 inch out there as well. But this is the material I use for building most of the parts of my models. There are several other little tools and tips and tricks and things that I've learned along the way, but that is kind of like if you wanted to get started and wanted to do just about everything that I do right now, those are the things that you would need. So, how about we demonstrate how I use them? I have been working on this longhouse model. I've been working on this longhouse terrain piece. I built the longhouse and I have the chicken coop here and a little garden, and I want just to create a little wheelbarrow that will go in here. So I'll make a little wheelbarrow and it will demonstrate how I use most of the tools that I just showed you. I have my Proxxon, I have my Dungeons by Hand fence, and I have my metal carpenter square, and I want to first create just a little base of that, and I think I'll go like 3/4 inch wide. Take my foam, turn on my Proxxon, slice off a piece. And then I'm going to go with, about 1 inch long on that. And then I want to just slice that down to a plank size, basically. So I have something like that. And then I'll need some little sides for it. I'm just cutting up little pieces that will all be tacked together. And I'll slice off a couple of handles. There'll be the framing that the wheel will be attached to and the handles at the other end. And for the wheel, I'm going to switch out the Dungeons by Hand fence for the circle jig. This is for cutting circles, obviously, hence the name. You set this depth to what you want. Now, obviously don't want this big clunky Flintstones looking wheel, so I'll put the fence back on and slice it down to the thickness that I want. And I'll be done with the Proxxon. Next, we'll do some texturing. This is where I use the steel wire brush. I do not want to bring this directly in at a 90-degree angle. I'm going to lay it down almost flat and draw those wires through the foam. And that is the wood texture that I get with that technique. And I will do all the visible surfaces the same way. Careful not to shred the foam or break it. And next, I need to get these pieces all painted, and I do that by building up layers. I will start off, and I start off almost everything with this base coat. It is 2 parts matte Mod Podge to 1 part black acrylic paint. I did not invent this concoction. A lot of crafters use it. Everybody I know uses it. This will protect and seal the foam, and it will also give that black base coat that you can then build up onto. You don't really want to have to hide all this green or blue. Now, a mistake a lot of people make with this stuff is to lay it on really thick. You do not need to. You don't want to bury all of that wood grain you just created. So a very thin amount is all it takes. Once those pieces are all completely dry, I then go to the Craftsmart Golden Brown. And I use this a lot, especially for wood and stone. Squeeze out a little bit on my mat here. And I don't want to completely, I want to get maybe 85 to 90% coverage here. So I'll load paint on the brush, remove most of it on a piece of paper towel, and just do some overbrushing. Not completely burying that black or my detail. I really like the weathered, aged wood look, especially when it's outdoors, like a wheelbarrow would be. And you're going to get something that looks like that. I'll finish painting these and then we'll do the next step. And once that is all completely dry, I'll now go in and dry brush with the Craftsmart Suede. I use this for dry brushing almost all of my wood and stone. Very little bit of paint here. So this is an even less heavy coat than I did with the Golden Brown, more like maybe oh, I don't know, 40 or 50% coverage. Just a dry brush, a very dry brush. And this is what ages the wood and makes it kind of gray like weathered wood really is. So you can see we've gone from that to something that looks like this, very weathered wood. I'll do the same thing. I'll go through and dry brush all of these pieces and we'll come back and assemble them. All right, I have those all dry brushed and I don't feel like waiting for them to dry completely. I want to get to this. So I'm going to bust out the old heat tool that I have here, and this will melt the foam if you're not careful. So I'm going to keep things moving and just quickly dry this paint that's on here. Moving the piece around, keeping the heat tool moving. This kind of like working as a hairdryer, and you probably could use a hairdryer for this. Again, keep it moving, not too close, don't want to melt the foam. Just want to dry that paint, because I'm impatient. That's all dry now. Let's get these pieces assembled. I'll begin with attaching my two little brace handle pieces to the sides of the wheel. Just a little spot of hot glue. I don't want to let the metal tip rest in the foam. That will melt it, but just a little spot of glue on there and tack it down about the middle. I'll do the one on the other side as well. Set that aside and assemble essentially the box that makes up the main part of the cart here. Doesn't take much of this, a little tiny string of hot glue on there. And then I will attach this little box to the frame / handles pieces here. And there we have a simple little wheelbarrow. And I can just set that in my terrain piece wherever I would like. Right there looks pretty good. So that's a great little super simple project that demonstrates how I use most of the tools that I use to make most of my projects. And if you get your hands on those things, you'll be able to do most of what I do. Come on back next time and we will keep on making stuff out of foam. Let me know if you have any questions, you need any clarity, you'd like to see me make anything in the comments below. We'll see you all next time. I just threw my brushes everywhere. Oh, that was nice. There are several. Am I saying several? Bless you, my dear.